The day after I installed the main bulkhead, I installed the bulkhead gussets. There's 4 of them at the bottom, 2 on each side. You can see the 2 aft ones right here. And then there's a pair on each side up at the gunnel level. 1 on each side. I'm going to walk around to the forward side here. There's the 2 at gunnel level and 2 down at the hull level. And these are plywood pieces. They come shaped the way they are. And installation was a matter of marking their locations, taping, and gluing in thick epoxy. The epoxy is the only thing that holds it. There's no clamping. For these upper ones do have these little alignment blocks to make sure they stay flush with the gunnel and the top of the bulkhead. But otherwise, it's just the epoxy that holds them in place while it cures. And these provide a huge amount of strength to this seam where the bulkhead and the hull meets. And when this gets cut in half, it's really what holds everything in the right shape. So those are setting up. And there's a few more steps to do before we think about cutting the hull in half, including filleting the bulkheads and the gussets and all of that. So there's the bulkhead gussets. Once the epoxy securing the gussets cured, in fact over the weekend, it had plenty of time to cure, I came in and cleaned up any epoxy squeeze out that I had missed, which really wasn't much. But I came along with some sandpaper and just sanded all the surfaces around the gussets and on the bulkheads and the hull in order to prepare for installing these fillets. And you can see the fillet there. This is the first round of fillets on this bulkhead. I'm doing it in 2 stages: the bulkhead and underneath the upper gussets, and then later, hopefully later today, when these cure enough, I'll come in and I'll fillet around these gussets down here and on the forward side around the top part of the daggerboard trunk. I'll show you that soon. But here's the first fillet. Nice healthy fillet on all surfaces, nice and clean. Not perfect, they never are, but it's pretty good. There won't be much sanding. Maybe a little touch up, especially on these ones like this aft side of the bulkhead that'll be visible in the finished boat. So we want it to look as nice as possible. It will be coated several times with epoxy, so that's going to fill any minor voids. And I'll fill at the other side of that upper one against the bulkhead at that time as well. The thing is, it's very hard to do these multiple corners, like 3 directions at once. So it's easier to let the first part cure and then do the adjoining part. So that's what I'm doing here. Here's the aft side. Then the forward side of the bulkhead, I did the lower part of the daggerboard trunk. And then the rest of the lower part of the bulkhead, just as on the aft side. And we're down there, underneath these upper gussets. I tipped the hull on one side at a time and did it that way. It's much easier to reach inside the boat that way. And I'll take you around to the other side and do the same kind of tour. Daggerboard trunk, I'll do those vertical sides later. As soon as, hopefully this afternoon, this lower fillet will cure enough. I used my shop epoxy and fast hardener for that reason, so that they don't take 2 days to cure. Here's the other part of the forward bulkhead fillet. Again, I'll do the lower gussets and any part of these upper gussets later as needed. Just makes it easier. Those gussets themselves will be, it's one motion to kind of go around the whole thing and keep it clean, so you can't be fussing with that lower corner at the same time. So we'll see how that goes a little bit later. And then the aft side on the starboard side here. And I also chose to fillet part of this after bulkhead because I had some epoxy and I saw no reason not to. The tabbing on these seams seems like it overlaps up onto the fillet a little bit, so I thought it'd be good to have these fillets in. When the rest of these aft tanks goes in, the two longitudinal pieces that run aft, I'll fillet around the corner and fillet the rest, but I didn't see why I shouldn't do this, just so that all the chines have the fillets on them. So I did those as well. The aft side is already done. I did that much earlier, as you can see. So there's the first round of fillets on the main bulkhead and the gussets. I did the mast step bulkhead much earlier as well. And we'll see a little bit more once I fillet those gussets. It's later in the same day, and I've gotten these gusset fillets done. Earlier I did the bulkhead fillets, left the gussets alone, and then those cured, the earlier fillets cured enough, I could come back and do these gusset fillets. Quite difficult to make clean. There'll probably be a little touch up on them. These are the aft two gussets on the main bulkhead. Also filleted that edge above the hardware hole there and the bulkhead. I did the after part of that this morning and then did that last part just now. Go around to the forward side. I finished up that gusset right there in the middle and the vertical edge of the daggerboard trunk. Probably touch up that corner there a little bit when everything's cured tomorrow. It's really easy to touch up. I want to avoid sanding too much. And there won't be too much sanding here. A little bit of hand sanding. Places like this where I pulled fillets from both directions and you just can't avoid a little bit of a scallop there. And then that after side above the hardware hole. Get a fillet under the upper mast step. And we'll spin around to the other side. Same thing on this side. These were hard to clean up. You pull the fillet and it leaves little piles on each side that you have to clean up with a squeegee or whatever kind of tool you like. I'm used to using squeegees. Works pretty well for me. They recommend a different method in the manual, but I stuck with what I know. It's nothing better than what you're used to. And it's effective. So again, that gusset and the vertical edge of the daggerboard trunk against the bulkhead. And around to the aft side of this side, same thing. You saw it from the other side too. And that forward section right above the hardware hole over here. So there's all the gusset fillets and bulkhead fillets and daggerboard trunk fillets all done. So now all that's left to do is clean them up a little bit as needed or if needed. And we're going to move on to taping the chines very soon. All those fillets came out pretty well. I started this morning and just sanded everything lightly just to clean up a little bit. Show you this aft one. It didn't take much in most cases, but the toughest places are the corners, three-way corners like down here. So once I'd cleaned up after sanding, I came in and just kind of cleaned up these corners a little bit with some extra epoxy. I call these vanity fillets because really all they do is make it look better, make me feel better. They don't do anything structurally this way. But I just wanted to clean up a few spots like that. But otherwise, these fillets came out well. You can see these other areas. But these triple corners are tough. So a little extra application like this just makes it a little nicer. I'll sand that once it cures. Go around to the forward side here. Did the same thing here, even though these won't be seen, but I can't leave them messy. They weren't that messy, but they needed a little touch up. Those corners. It's pretty much all just the corners. There's a little hollow there where the fillets met. that I don't like. It's just a little rough. It's a place that dirt and gunk might accumulate. And starboard side. The forward edge of that daggerboard trunk will get a little bit of glass reinforcement at some point. Not sure exactly when I'm going to do that, but soon. So I wanted those fillets very nice right there. Again, just cleaned up these corners. But otherwise the fillets are nice. And they'll get coated several times with epoxy before this boat is done. And then of course painted wherever it's going to be visible. And the little aft fillet. So I'll clean those up a little bit. You'll see that a little later. But that's where the fillets ended up. And that's nice work to have done. Next step from here is glassing these chines.